Yeah, feel free to just eat and drink and whatever you need to do. So if you want to, yeah, actually, however you want to arrive, I'm going to close my eyes and just take a few breaths. Maybe you want to have a little shake out of your shoulders, or maybe you want to be still. Maybe you want to drink more tea, whatever you need right now to just arrive in this space. But I'm going to invite you to envisage or imagine that we're all stepping into a circle together. And bring any elements that you want in this circle. Maybe you want there to be a fire in the middle, or something symbolic and sacred for each of the elements. Taking some nice deep breaths and any sounds that want to come with that. And breathing into your lower belly, your hips, your womb space, or your pelvic bowl. Really letting your shoulders melt like butter and soften. So you could almost feel like a really warm glow all around your heart space. Feeling your feet planted on the ground. And noticing any seeds or anything that's moving and alive in you right now. Maybe there's something that's asking to be expressed or moved or witnessed. Whatever is present, know that it is all welcome. Whatever your project or your idea or your dreams are, what they were and what they are becoming. Let this space be an unapologetic place to share and listen. And a place to practice. Less pleasing and less apologizing and more being who you are. More inviting in without judgment. And just having a moment now, whether you want to place your hands on your heart or you want to have a stretch out, whatever form opening your heart takes, whatever form sinking into your body a little bit more takes. In your own time, in your own space, at your own pace, gently coming back into the room. eyes, and before looking at the screen, just taking a moment to take in your surroundings. And then coming back to look at the screen. And greeting everyone with your eyes. Your smiles, if you want there to be smiles. With a round of sharing, a well-being check-in, as we like to call it. So this is a chance for you to just say what's in your heart right now, what's present, what's here, how you doing. So we'll do it with just popcorn style. So whenever you feel called to share, feel free to unmute yourself and go for it. I am just going to go and grab my Ethernet cable because it's saying my internet is unstable. I will still be listening.
Hey peeps, I might start if that's all right, because I don't have a baby at the moment, and it's just a lot easier to talk when he's not here. Yeah, I have to say at the moment things are pretty awesomely awesome. It's been some really big shifts recently in myself and how I see things, and I don't know, my home life and work and all the things. Yeah, and that was it was really quite daunting in the beginning. It was a bit like, oh my God, all these changes. So I did feel quite exhausted and it was quite difficult. But at the same time, everything has just kind of worked out really nicely. And yeah, it's that thing, I don't know if you know what I mean, but you sort of like embark on these changes and you're like, why did I start this? Can I just put it back in? Kind of wish I hadn't opened that box. But as always, it's proved to be a really positive thing, and everything that I have learned and have done is, I don't know, they just feel like really good chunks of things that I can carry forward. And yeah, I feel very optimistic, very light, I've got a lot of energy, more than I've had for a little while. So yeah, it's good. Just want to share that. It's lovely.
I don't mind going. Oh, hello, Ash. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm really, really well. And I've been really well for quite a while, really sort of buoyant. And I had raging toothache about 10 days ago, like toothache that I couldn't sleep and things like that. And Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the joy of no toothache, and I really know what he means. But I also feel this kind of deeper joy at the moment. And, you know, there's a bit of an old story for me, which says if I feel joy, then I need to kind of brace myself because the second shoe is going to drop, as the Americans say. So you know, this idea, Brené Brown talks about it, doesn't she? Foreboding joy. This idea that when you feel really good, there's a bit of you that's braced against the next thing happening or one losing that feeling. And I noticed that, and I'm not entertaining it. I feel really good. I feel very in love with life and in love with trees and connected to nature. And I was listening I've had quite a lot of shifts similar, I don't know about similar to Robin, but in the same way that Robin has in recent weeks. And I listened to a podcast, an episode of Buddha at the Gas Pump with Claire Dubois, the founder of Tree Sisters. And it just fucking turned my world upside down, and sort of, I just felt so plugged in. And there was a funny moment in that podcast. I was listening to it intently and drinking it in and feeling so inspired by it and nourished by it. And I wanted to nip into my kitchen to get a glass of water and come back and listen. And just as I stepped out of the living room at that point in the interview, Claire went, "And if you're listening to this, sit still and listen." I was like, "Okay, Claire, okay, I don't need any water. I'm fine, I'm good." And it sounds perhaps a little strange, but it really did feel like something I needed to listen to in that moment, that whole thing. And it really shifted something for me that was very ripe. And, you know, I'm 55 soon and I am becoming a little bit nuts. I went for a walk around the city this morning and I was just enjoying being with the trees before all the shoppers got there, and saying hello to my tree friends and members of the standing nation. So yeah, I'm a wee bit nuts and I'm celebrating that as well. So that's me today.
Don't mind going next. 1 second. I think Andrew's gone out. I'm just going to check because I'm probably going to talk about him. Hello. Fine, he's gone. For a bike ride, I think. I think I'm all right. I think some of you will know me and Andrew have been having a bit of a bumpy time.
So I'll start the recording again.
I just need to get a couple of cables, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so perhaps we can start with, well, Sue's gone, but when Sue comes back, perhaps she can share a little about what prompted her to think about that and request that before we dive in.
So I'm just plugging.
It's all good.
I just noticed that my battery was really low, but actually where my lead isn't very long, so it's a bit of a stretch.
Did you hear what I said, Sue?
I did, yes. Yeah.
Does that feel okay? Do you want to share what prompted it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, it so it came. I started thinking around this idea of how we value what we do after I had a conversation with somebody who is a contact, really good contact for some of the work that we're creating with Off the Twig, somebody that works in the School of Health Sciences. And we were sort of talking around ideas of where to go for funding for this public memorial project. And we were sort of talking about, sort of going to local businesses for sort of small pots of money. And I was talking about the various different expenses that are involved with something, including, payment of my time. And he said, I'm really sorry. It didn't actually really occur to me that you need to be paid for your time. And and he was very apologetic and went, "Oh yeah, of course you do need to be." But it's not the first time that I've come across that before when I've been maybe talking about, especially to do with funding or sponsorship for projects, and people wanting to have an idea about what a budget is and thinking that things just happen like that. But I noticed that I almost felt some shame about the fact that I was expecting to be paid for it, which I know is ridiculous. And I don't know what that, yeah, I'm not sure. And I think that I think there's many layers to that. I feel there's my own personal feelings of my worth and what I was brought up with, particularly relating to the work that I do. But there's also so much within the culture about the value that we put on things, especially when you do, maybe when you are working in sort of creative areas and well-being. And so I just thought that would be a really interesting, because it seems like such a many layered thing, so many different influences in there, which I just thought that would be really interesting to explore. So yeah, that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that here. And I know I think I've spoken to every single one of you about this at one time or another. Does anyone want to share what's been sparked for them from hearing Sue?
Just that I really resonate, but I've never actually applied for any funding for any projects, and it's starting to something I'm starting to think about a bit more, but I haven't quite got it together yet. But yeah, just in terms of I often get asked by people, oh, could I use some of your photos for this, or could I use some of your photos for that? And it's very difficult to kind of, it's kind of easier if it's like a set thing, like a photo shoot or something that, I kind of have an idea of what I might charge for somebody I know or someone who I don't know, whatever. But there's this thing of valuing work that I've already created. It's almost like if I've already created that work and it's out there in the world, then why do I need to get any payment for it, because I'm not doing any additional work for it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, but the amount of time and energy that and creative input that I put into making those images in the first place was massive, or may have been massive. But it's really difficult when it's what I find really difficult is when it's friends who are asking, oh, can I just do, would it be okay to just use a few of your photos on my website or whatever? And there's part of me that really wants to say, yeah, of course, that's fine, just put a credit, that's fine. And then there's another part of me going, oh, I should be standing up for artists all over the world who are not getting properly paid for their work. And then there's this sort of weird wanting to be generous, but also wanting to honor my time and my creativity. And I find that a really difficult line to walk. And also just in terms of valuing what I do, I feel like I'm getting there with calling myself an artist. And there's been a couple of times recently where I've introduced myself and people have said, it's been in context of I'm running a photography course, so it feels okay to say I'm Rachel, I'm a photographic artist. I think I would still maybe struggle with that in a more general context of if I was at a dinner party. Remember those things we used to do back in the day? I think I would possibly still default to I work for a charity part-time, and then and I don't know, I haven't been in that situation for a long time, so it'd be interesting to see whether I would value my creative self up there and to have the confidence to say oh yeah, I'm an artist, or whether I don't know. But it's been a long journey to get to that point of being able to say I'm an artist. I think a lot of that is not really feeling like I'm worthy of that title or something. Just really, like you say, Sue, a lot of layers. There's a lot of society, personal views, family input, influence, a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. Because when I was a potter, I used to really struggle pricing everything, and the amount of hours you put into like all the research, you know, all the education stuff you do, that all has to come out of it as well, doesn't it, when you're doing something creative. And yeah, I used to kind of get told by customers that the prices were too high, and then other potters that my price was too low, and you know, it was always difficult. But then when I went into working with dogs and stuff, I could put a price on that. It was really weird, and I feel disgruntled when I don't get, you know, the amount of money that I know it's worth. So why? And I didn't do any training in that as yet, you know. I have been working on it, but yeah, it was funny that even though I had put so much into my creative practice, it was so much harder to put a cost onto that than it is a service like dog walking. Yeah, and yet on the other flip side, I'd get really annoyed when people would say things like, oh, it must be lovely to do your hobby for a job. It's like, you know, and things like that. So I think I had that mentality to not be able to price it. I must have had something that must have been in my mentality anyway, and for someone to say it to me and it sparked that in me, it must have been triggering that, you know, that within me anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Kate.
It's such a rich area, this, isn't it? It's such a doozy, you know. Some of the things that folk have said have made me think about. I remember when I trained as a coach. That would have been 2012, 13. And coaching, I think coaching sort of, particularly in the UK, perhaps it sort of lives in a slightly shadowed veil. I don't think it, like in America, it's, you know, coaches are like smoothies, you know, everyone has one every day kind of thing. And people charge seriously kind of off the charts money, as I'm sure you're aware, like batshit crazy sums, $10,000 an hour, things like this, you know, for top level corporate coaching and stuff. And I really resonate with what you're saying, Rachel, around, I remember when I first took my first steps out as a coach, and I would often say to people, I'm a coach, and then my eyes would be like tracking every twitch and flicker, and I'd be like, but I used to work in publishing and international development. You know, like, I used to be worthwhile. Sorry about this blip. And I think this idea of it being many layered, I think, is absolutely spot on. And I think what you said, Kate, about something in us that's, well, let me speak for myself, something in me that feels vulnerable and insecure and is not convinced, actually, perhaps, or is, but is afraid of that. Because I was totally convinced by coaching and you know, the power of that and the magic of that and the connection and everything. And that very vulnerable part of us, I think it only needs to meet a slight breeze in the quotes real world, and it just goes over. And my experience, and I don't mean anything I say to sound prescriptive or like I've got the deal on this, but I have been through the fucking mill on this. I really have. And these days, I honestly, I don't bat an eyelid about it. And I'm happy to share that transition, but I don't know how useful that is. All I know is every time I got knocked over, I kept getting back up. And as a small, for instance, recently, I offer a course called Overcoming Imposter Syndrome. We teach what we most need to learn. And, you know, some of this touches on what we're talking about, right? And the Detective Chief Inspector from Hampshire Police contacted me a couple of weeks ago to say, you know, we're on to you. No, to say, we would like to do your course for our College of Policing, for the trainings, to train the trainers. And I noticed that I looked at the email and there was a really like 2% little Sarah going, fuck my old boots, no fucking way. And 98% Sarah was like, let's see what they've got to say, it could be really interesting. And I want to just kind of really, I do want to keep in my humility, because I'm not sure how helpful it is to sort of say, oh, I've overcome this. But I really do feel like I've rumbled with this for about 8 or 9 years, and it fucking sucked back in the day. It was the worst part of my work, to the point where sometimes I would think, look, I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to go and get a proper job. I think what changed is a couple of things. I really value what I offer, and that doesn't come from an egoic place. It comes from actually, I love what I offer, is probably a better way of saying it. And also, I think a question to ask, that I ask myself, is what is the value of this to the person who's asking? You know, because sometimes we don't ask that question. I don't want to speak for anyone here, but I haven't asked that question historically sometimes. And I think someone said that to me along the way. They said, your stuff is, you know, you've got your own stuff going on. Ask yourself, what is the value to that person? And sometimes that's helpful. It just loosens things up, you know, because people ask for stuff and want stuff for a reason. And we don't go into Boots, you know, whether we go into Boots or not, we don't go into Boots to get some lavender oil and think, do you know what, I think I'll just take this. Is that all right with everyone in Boots? I'm just going to have it. Because you know, it's not fucking worth that much really, is it, lavender oil? I'm just going to have it. It doesn't wash. It just totally doesn't wash. So, yeah. Yeah. And just, sorry, there's one other piece, because I think there's so much to this. And it's very alive coming out of this Healing the Witch Wound summit that was on this week. I caught a few of the talks, and I think there's a sort of ancestral piece here that's in the mix around women owning their shit, owning their power, believing in themselves, loving what they do, believing in their creativity, and that not feeling dangerous at some kind of DNA level. I just want to kind of put that in the mix as well, because we're being asked to carry a shitload here as women, and yeah, I really want to honor that. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Can I say we've got some music on in the house? Is that annoying? Can people hear that?
No.
Okay, great. Perfect. Yeah, I just want to. Sorry, the baby's feeding. He just looked up at me like, "What?" Very cute, but it's like, "You talking?" No, I'm eating. Sorry. Yeah, but no, this is huge for me. It's really interesting because I had some awesomely awesome news last week that I got some funding to do a project, which is just like mental quick, honestly. So, you know, I told you guys about the mums project, the mums group that I was thinking about doing. So yeah, basically I wrote up some notes while I was breastfeeding one night, and I sent them to Simon, the bid writer. He wrote me this like kick-ass amazing bid and sent it off accidentally. He sent me an email saying, so I've submitted your A4, and I'm like, already? And I didn't have a venue or anything at that point. And he said, yes, sorry, I was just making some changes and I pressed the submit button accidentally. And I was like, okay. And then literally with the next week, they got back to me to say, here's your funding. And yeah, the money's in the bank account. So it literally happened in like, I don't know.
Amazing.
It was mental. Wow. So that was awesome, but also a bit like, what the hell? Okay, now I've actually got to do this thing that I just had a crazy idea about. But it's lovely, really lovely. I'm working with Mel's that's on the group. She's going to help me because she's got so much experience with all the things I need experience with. But oh yeah, but hilariously, I've never been to a mum's group in my life. And I'm running a mum's group. Too good. But anyway, got loads of ideas. It's gonna be great. But it was really interesting because the guy, a friend of mine anyway, I was telling him about this, and before I'd even got the funding, and he was like, what, they just give you money for like not doing anything? And I was like, hang on there. I'm going to do quite a lot of stuff, you know. And it was fascinating. It was just how he looked at it. He's like an older guy, and he couldn't believe that you get the money up front. And this is what I had to explain to him, is like, it's not that I'm not doing anything, it's that I get the money before I deliver it. And he was like, he still wasn't convinced. He was just like, well, they're giving you loads of money and you're not doing shit. Do you know what I mean? And I realized that actually so much like that is definitely in my, you know, like, oh my God, yeah, they're just handing out this money. And at the same time, I'm like, I know what I'm going to provide is going to be so worthwhile to so many people. But at the same time, because I know I'm going to enjoy it, and I know it's going to be really good for me, it's going to be really good for River, there is also part of me that feels like there's like quite a lot of shame and guilt around that, because it's like I'm getting paid for doing this thing that's good for me, and it's, you know, it could be really, well, it will work out to be slightly less than my maternity pay for like one morning, maybe about 10 hours a week. Do you know what I mean? It compared to a lot of people, it's not very much. It's like under £600, but still, it's like that's what basically I'm living on. Do you know what I mean? So there's so many parts to that. Like, I'm not doing enough to deserve this amount of money, and this isn't enough to, you know. And it's just like, but then there's another part of me that's like, this is fucking awesome. Like, how lucky am I that I get, like, I'm getting paid to deliver something that I'm really passionate about and it's really needed, and you know, so I do have both the things. But it was so interesting, Sue, when you sort of said about this as a thing, because it is so much about how much, yeah, I value what I do and how much we value, isn't it? And Sarah, like, you apologized, which I thought was really interesting. I want to be like, don't you apologize about like that it's not good to hear you sort of saying that you don't worry about it anymore. It's so good to hear that you don't worry about it anymore, because it makes me know that it's possible. And so yeah, I really value that, and I thank you for it. And yeah, I think you almost have to be talking about it more, because it's so ingrained for me. I do definitely worry and wonder whether it's just something I'm going to always have to live with. Whether you have to talk myself round and, you know, explain to myself, no, Robin, you're allowed to have this and that sort of stuff. But also welcome more, you know, this is great and it pays my bills and that's what I need. But God, how lovely it would be to have a little bit extra. And so, yeah, that's what, you know, incrementally, I know it's all about that, but it's like, yeah, so I'm really hoping to open up to that as well. But it's also, there's a definite part of that that's been in my relationship as well. I've had some counselling as well recently, and I was talking to the counsellor, and he was saying, I can't really remember exactly how it went, but he was talking about how I felt about myself in the relationship, and I was like, yeah, I think I feel quite positive and stuff. And he was like, that's really interesting, because you don't seem it. And I was like, excuse me, but it was really fascinating, because I realized that actually I wasn't valuing myself. I could value myself in certain areas of my life, maybe my work or my friendship or my family, but actually the value that I put on myself in a relationship, because maybe at one point in my life, I think I did value what my input in a relationship, but I think that sort of, it had dwindled quite a lot over the years. And so that was huge for me as well, that I can value myself in one aspect or multiple aspects of my life, but really not in other aspects. And that's been it's been a key piece to really improving my conversation, communication in my relationship. And just like a tiny example, me and Charlie were talking about yesterday, is like, we had a day planned going to doodle pots and making Christmas presents and stuff yesterday, like handprints and stuff for him. it's awesome having a baby, never had to think about presents ever. But normally I'd check in with Charlie and say like, oh, is that, because he wasn't working yesterday, is that still okay to you know, that we do this? And you know, because I wanted to be considerate and that sort of stuff. But I thought, do you know what, it isn't okay if it's not okay, if that makes sense, because it's something I'm really looking forward to and I really want to do. So I just said that to him, and I just said like, I'm so excited about going to this thing tomorrow, I think it's gonna be really lovely. And then we had more of a conversation about it, and he said, thank you for that, because actually when you question it, it comes across like you're doubtful and actually that you don't want to. And I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. So there's a whole load of layers in this. And so, yeah, thank you for bringing up the subject. I really look forward to hearing everybody else's input on it, because it's like, it's really alive for me at the moment. And it also has, I feel like it has a lot of value in my life to like improve it. And yeah, so yeah, thank you all.
Yeah, gosh. What really popped for me, I think Sue and Rachel, when you shared around kind of well, everyone really, but for me what really popped was Brené's like metaphor, or like visual of like the arena, and you know, there's the man face down in the arena full of blood, sweat, tears, and then the critic in the cheap seat. And that really popped for me as like a visual, thinking about those people that we interact with that perhaps don't really understand what we're doing, or what we're going, you know, sort of understand the value of what we're doing. And then like on a personal level as well, almost like we have that, I feel like I have that inbuilt in me as well. So sometimes I'm like thinking what I think the other person is thinking. Do you know what I mean? Like making up, actually they might not be thinking that at all, but I'm thinking that they're thinking that. And I think that's where, you know, because I've done it before, and it took me back to when I used to work in catering, and you know, I was a waitress, and I don't know, I'd meet someone new and I'd feel a little bit of shame about, oh yeah, I work as a waitress. So what do you do? It's like, I'm a waitress, and it's like, oh yeah, but then I also like sort of run my own projects, and that was like always like an afterthought. But actually, when you work in catering, firstly, it's mega hard work. Secondly, I reckon everyone at some point in their life should work in catering, just to get that understanding of like, you know, it's not this really easy money, easy going kind of job. It's like, you know, it's hard work emotionally, physically, and you always got to sort of have this weird front that you're always friendly and kind and bubbly. And then, you know, I always think whenever I got a customer that was just being an arsehole, basically, I always thought like, oh, I bet, you know, I make this assumption that I bet they've never worked in catering before, because you just know. And, you know, of course, there's ways if you're unhappy with your food or something's, you know, not up to scratch, then of course, like asking that in a manner that's like, actually, you know, can I have this a bit warmer, instead of just being like, oh yeah, you know, there's just, you know what I mean, there's like ways about standing your ground with a kind heart, and asking for what you need. So anyway, ramble, but what I'm getting to is like this thing of like what you were talking about, your time and your artwork and your creations, and you know, things that have tremendous value. If people aren't perhaps in that world, then they perhaps just don't get it. And it's not personal. I'm talking to myself as well. It's not personal to us. It's not a personal thing. And yet, yeah, it's so easy to take it so personal, isn't it? And I'm 100% there. It's just like, oh my God, but what I'm offering is just, you know, and I find it very easy to just shrink away from that. So yeah, Sarah, I would love to hear, yeah, kind of those things that have helped you almost like stand your holy ground, you know, in those moments of actually, yes, this is this is what I value, this is what I am creating, this is my work, this is, you know, all of these things. But what's really helped me this past week, actually, I connected with an online retreat, which there was loads of offerings, but one of them was a woman specifically talking about the body in terms of how we connect to our work and money and how we value our work. And I wrote down a phrase that really stuck with me. And she said, think about the impact your work is going to have in their life as part of the pricing. So I think we touched on this a couple of meetups ago, where we're thinking about what we want people to gain from our work, or what we want people to leave with if it's a workshop, or what they want to experience from our work, basically. So thinking about that impact of your work. And then and Kate, you touched on it, you know, thinking about all the education, everything you've invested to get where you are, the time and the energy that you've put into it. All of that is kind of like, I find it helpful, because it's almost like it's taking the spotlight off of my work and kind of bringing in, like, almost like zooming out and bringing in the bigger picture of, like, actually this is going to have a massive impact on this person if they come to my workshop. Actually, I've put in loads of time, loads of money, loads of hours to do the training to get where I am. And yeah, and then there's obviously so much more in that process as well. But the key piece here, she says, and you can touch that deeper impact when you connect to your body. And it's like that whole thing that I often really externalize it, and like, yeah, this is where I'm getting my value from, this is what I'm putting out there, this is what I'm offering. But actually, I need to remember to come back to my body to be able to connect with that bigger picture of course, you know, I think, Sarah, you touched on it, you know, life has moved through us. And if you want to kind of go out there and see, like, yeah, how sometimes we get those creative downloads, you know, they're not necessarily kind of our ideas, but they sort of come through us, and just kind of depersonalizing and connect and allowing that to almost expand our understanding, expand. Yeah, I feel like it's an expansion of our value as well, even though it's, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say? Got a bit, so yeah, it's got a bit confusing, but it's, yeah, kind of connecting to the body instead of the body and our roots, like our physical roots, instead of like thinking about our value just from this place. And like expanding into the bigger picture of, like, oh yeah, so I spent hours on my course and training and loads of money. I spent hours like putting this product or project together, and then thinking about the impact of, like, oh yeah, this is going to have a huge impact on a person who comes to my workshop. Instead of kind of like being up here in the cheap seats of, like, oh, but actually, you know, maybe I should do this, and maybe it's too expensive and blah blah blah. Yeah, my thoughts.
Just, is it all right if I just sort of respond to that, or some of the things you said? So yeah, that all makes sense, and yeah, I really hear that. And I think for me, I often struggle with the kind of value I put on something when I know or I have a feeling it's going to have a positive impact on other people. So when I'm running a creative course, I feel like I can prioritize that, I can value it, I can know that I'm not going to do it if I'm not getting paid for it. What I struggle with valuing and prioritizing and making time for and yeah, I guess just valuing is the work that I can't see how it is going to have a positive impact on anybody. It's my heart and soul's calling to create my own personal work, and it might be themes that are deeply personal to me, and at the moment I can't necessarily see how that is going to have a positive impact on anyone beyond me. It may not be something I even share beyond me, but I know that it will inform my work. That will eventually, something will go out into the world, and it will eventually, you know, I think all art has the potential to touch people, to move people, to elicit positive change in the world, but it's not as clear like not as much of a clear line as I'm going to spend X hours planning this course, I'm going to run the course, and hopefully people are going to go away feeling inspired and positive and blah blah blah. It's much more tenuous, and that's the stuff I struggle to really value, even though it's the thing that absolutely fires my soul. You know, it's like I love running the courses and the workshops, that's great, but I think if I had, you know, if I suddenly won the lottery, or somebody just said, I love your work, Rachel, I'm going to pay you to do exactly whatever you want all day, every day, it would be the soul food creativity that is not necessarily anything that I would ever sell or put in a gallery, or it's yeah. So I don't know how that relates, I guess, or if anyone else can relate to that. I guess it's all the kind of research and development stuff that often leads to something that goes out into the world and has an impact. But at the moment, I'm not seeing it as that. I'm just seeing it as this that I'm doing right now, and who knows where it's going. It's like applying for I could foresee myself applying for a grant to do a project that had a kind of really tangible output, but to apply for the Arts Council developing your creative practice grant, where you kind of get money to do research and development and just develop your creative practice, it's like my heart is like, oh, I really want to do that. And then there's another part of me going, oh, but I don't understand, like there's no tangible thing, like how can they pay me for it? It's so, yeah. And that's probably a lot of conditioning, a lot of society of like value is based on productivity and output, but that's just something I'm thinking about. Like I totally hear you saying like think about the impact that what you're creating is having on other people, but sometimes I think, well, the impact I might not have any impact on other people, because I might never share it. It might just be what I need to do in this moment. But valuing that above the, oh, I better do all the things on the to-do list and the spreadsheets and the, you know, linear logical stuff. That's my.
Yeah, and I think that you really like, I feel like you've answered your own question there. Because I feel like you said, you know, it really lights your fire and your soul. Lights the fire in your soul and your heart, and like makes you soul. I think Sue touched on that earlier when she was talking about like we are our bodies, our souls, our hearts. That is like the main priority for any of this to even be possible. Anything that's going to give you like your fire and your creativity and your like joy and, you know, your play. I think, yeah, I mean, you can't kind of serve from an empty cup, right? Like that needs to be, that is, even if it's just you and you know about it, that is already impacting everything that you're doing. Because you're like, yes, I'm fueled and ready, and I'm, you know, in this creation world. So,
that's a really good point.
I used to break things down like bread and butter. So I used to have my bread and butter work, but my hours for the other creative practice would go into my bread and butter. So I'd know that like in the future, my stuff that I was kind of just practicing with and creating and just having a play with was going to come out as like a new collection later on in some way, like you're saying. But for that time that I was taking to play and explore, I would put that into the prices for the things that like, so like, you know, like you do 9 to 5 or whatever, just as a thing like throughout the week, and break that down as like an hourly rate you'd be comfortable with, and then put that into like the final products of what you are offering out, whether that be a workshop or a final piece. So that's kind of how I broke it down. The bread and butter.
I had
Can I just say really quickly, sorry, I'm trying to say something, my baby keeps making loads of loud noises. When I hear you talk, Rachel, I think it's really interesting, because it's like, I think I do it definitely, I think we all seem to do it. It's like, if we're doing something for other people, then that's great, we can like take money for it. But if it's just for ourselves, it's like, no, you are having a laugh. And it's that whole kind of like selfishness, isn't it? You know, I can't possibly take money just for myself. And I think that is it's really a thing for me. It's like, how can I get around that? How can I actually, convince myself? I suppose I don't want to have to convince myself every time that, it's okay to take money just for me to do things, so maybe there's a way round to a whole different way of looking at it or thinking about it, so that it can be like, actually, like you say, I don't know if it's deserving or worthy, or just the fact that actually that deep understanding that when we do stuff for ourselves, well, actually, why is it not just enough that we can do it for ourselves? And that, why does it not? Because then my brain's going, but it will have an impact for other people in the future, and it's just actually like a bit like, fuck the future, like, actually, is it I feel like it should be enough for it just to be a positive thing for me.
Why it's like bringing it back to the why, isn't it? Why are we doing these things? Because actually these are the things that light us up. So if we stop doing the things that light us up, then the whole thing loses kind of its meaning to why we start doing it in the first place.
Which I've experienced before in a job that on paper was like the dream job, and it's in the creative industry, and it's in the photography industry, and it sounded amazing, and it was to start with, because it was something I did very part-time, and then I had time to do my own creative practice, but it gradually took over to the point where I didn't ever have time to take my own photos, and I ended up hating it. Like, I couldn't bear the sight of this blog that I was writing, because I was just like, I've got completely empty tank right now, and it's just, it all went into giving, and I do want to give, and I do want to have a positive impact in the world, but you're right, it's not possible unless I've got a cup that is being steadily refilled, isn't it? So yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you all for your input. I
had an analogy when we were talking as well. I was thinking, if you were, if somebody was an athlete, and one wouldn't expect that athlete to just kind of like just do nothing and just sit on their ass watching Netflix and eating crisps, and then just show up to your 100-meter sprint.
Very good point.
You're an artist. It's like your ongoing creative practice is part of who you are. It's part of staying in the flow, isn't it, with things? It's your everything.
And it's so interesting how I will always prioritize other things. Often prioritize other things, and it's the thing that is last on the list, because I just need to get these few things done, and I'll do that thing, and doing, and actually I have actually dropped a few things next term, next spring, after Christmas, and I'm going to really focus on prioritizing it and having my Friday studio day where I'm just like, whatever happens, even if I do end up lying on the sofa reading a book, it's like, that is part of it, isn't it? It's all part of it, rather than always being like doing out into the world.
For sure.
So I'm curious to what your I feel like I want to ask you more about, there were different aspects of this that you were bringing, like we talked about. I mean, we don't have to, but if we go back to the stagecoach, there are lots of bits to this, aren't there? I'm curious if you wanted to table something else.
Before I do, I just want to say there's absolutely nothing wrong with sitting around watching Netflix, eating crisps.
Amen, sister.
Sometimes it's absolutely the right thing to do. I think there is something that I'd like to share around that, which I think is to do with, I mean, I think there is a culture of you know, that an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, and that work should be hard work. And I was very much brought up in that kind of you know, with that kind of mindset. And what I so often find, something occurred to me recently when it was the last workshop that we were doing with Jackie Starling's social enterprise workshop, which was a kind of like, oh, feel the fear and do it anyway, you know, take the leap. And I think I felt very disconnected from it all, because I felt really acutely aware of how, you know, for me, it feels like there's something that's, you know, that's quite deeply lodged in me about my value, that isn't something that is just going to go ping in a workshop. And it's something that I'm, you know, sort of constantly aware of. And that was how I was very actively discouraged as a child from following the path that I follow now. You know, I was told that I was no good at performing, and I shouldn't do that. And you know, and sort of shown, you know, given examples from, you know, people that worked in the local amateur dramatic society, and like, oh, look at so and so, you know, he's got his proper job, but you know, he does the pantomime every year. You know, that's what you should be doing. So I feel like, I don't know, I think so much of what I do feels like it's coming from a place of kind of proving my worth, and proving that I have value. Yeah, and that feels like that's a real kind of sticky one for me, is, you know, is that thing that I just sort of carry with me. And I have, you know, I'm sort of exploring that, and I'm having counselling at the moment, because it just seems to keep coming back. It's like I sort of, you know, every now and again I sort of top up, but a lot of it is, you know, it feels external. It's like if I've managed to pull something off, if I, you know, achieve something, or, you know, somebody says something nice about my work, all stuff that's coming from outside, then I'll be sort of riding high on the feeling of that for a while. And my value feels very much, and my sense of my own value very much feels like it comes from outside. I think there is also, you know, there's also a kind of an aspect that it is hard to sort of, you know, keep drawing on our own resources all the time for our value and for our worth. And, you know, none of us are islands, and actually, you know, it is so important that we have communities like this where we can remind each other of our worth and our value when we forget. So I mean, yeah, there's a balance there, isn't there, about how we, you know, how we find it and maintain it within ourselves, and that, you know, being part of that community that goes, hey, you're fucking awesome, you know, when we forget that we are. So yeah.
There's such a lot in what you just shared, Sue, for me. Thank you for sharing. The thing that I really just wanted, it just felt like such a bright jewel, and the little magpie or raven in me wants to swoop down and take it up into the sunlight and let it reflect, is saying, like you were saying earlier, Amy, oh, I wonder what your, sorry, I just need to shut WhatsApp down. The jewel that I wanted to shine a light on further is when you said, I'm not just going to go to a workshop and someone's going to say something and we go, oh, thank you, sachet of instant worth, let me mix that and have that little drink. Oh, I feel so much better. Like, yes and no. Do you know what I mean? Like, these things help, but and for me, one of the things I came to a conclusion of, it was an identity level piece. And that was why it felt like more than a stone in my shoe. It felt like, whoa, this is, if I need to kind of bring this up, it's coming up from the bone marrow, you know? And I think it's so interesting. I think all of us have touched on, maybe all of us have touched on in part, this idea that we have stories, don't we, from outside, and culture and our families, and you know, there's the whole Protestant work ethic, whether we're Protestants or not, the whole kind of nose to the grindstone, like you said, an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, which actually means working your fucking arse off for 18 hours a day, because that was born and bred in the mills, that wasn't it, that mentality, that wasn't a kind of, oh well, you know, do a couple of hours on a laptop from Barbados. It was fucking hard graft that you got your Protestant loaf of bread for. So it's a very, very demanding ethic, and I think that's baked into us to varying degrees in the culture and stuff. And I think partly for me why I found it so challenging is I realized at some level I was breaking a family vow, like a kind of ancestral vow. Like my paternal grandmother ran a fish and chip shop in Lowestoft for her sins. And one of the few things I know about that dear woman, I mean, I knew her, but she was kind of unknowable. She worked in the fish and chip shop till she was 84, before dying 20 years later. At like fucking 84, working in a fish and chip shop. What? And there I was back in 2012 going, I wonder why I have problems going self-employed and sort of, you know, fannying around the edges, you know, as it seemed. I think the other thing I want to just gently share is in the Overcoming Imposter Syndrome course, I share something called the Deadly P's, and it stands for, the P's are behaviours that we have when shame stories are running us. And the shame stories might be, I'm not good enough, or if I wrestle that one to the ground, then maybe another one pops up, which is, who do you think you are? And these are really common for women, you know, not good enough, not this enough, not that enough, not ready enough, not smart enough, not whatever enough. And we sort of do battle with that and cut the head off the hydra, and it grows another head. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to speak on this panel or speak about this topic or whatever it is? Hold yourself up as an imposter syndrome person. And the research I did for that course, I sort of borrowed quite a bit from Brené Brown and around these deadly P's of like pleasing and proving and performing and perfecting and pretending and procrastinating. And it's not about making them wrong. It's just about, oh yeah, fuck, I'm doing them. Or one of them's dialed up to 11 on a scale of 1 to 10, and it's fucking exhausting. So I think for me, there's, you know, it wasn't lost on me that I was tweaking slides for my imposter syndrome slides about perfectionism, and I was like, oh, do I want this font or that font? It's like, it's fucking midnight, choose a fucking font. Oh, perfectionism, you know. So there's a sort of cosmic joke there to enjoy as well. Yeah, so I think breaking ancestral vows, family vows, breaking cultural vows, there's that. I also feel these days very inspired. I used to feel very put upon by it, but these days I feel very inspired that a lot of what I believe we're doing, it's subjective, but I believe we're doing, consciously or otherwise, is changing the paradigm. I don't, if I had like my stepkids, ideally, I don't fucking want them to go into PricewaterhouseCoopers and work from 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening, because I know what happens to people's bodies. I know what happens to people's souls when they do that. You can make a shit ton of money, but I don't see too many people who are super happy in that paradigm. So for me, I have a lot of motivation around sort of being a very small part of the turning. But I think we do need to deal with our own pain first before we sort of take that more global. And yeah, maybe there's something about vision, like what's the vision? You know, what's the why? But maybe I want to say something about that another day. I tell you a book that really I found really helpful was a book called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist, who has gone on to set up the Pachamama Alliance, which I think is fucking awesome. But Lynn Twist's book, The Soul of Money, it's all about scarcity myths and how we are run, particularly as women, by scarcity myths, conscious or otherwise. There isn't enough is a massive kind of gut feeling for women when we tune into it around whether we're enough, or there will be enough money for us, or you know, all of the things. Yeah, the other thing I want to mention is someone said it to me years ago, and I thought, bloody hell, that's true. Do you know what pisses me off? This is a bit ranty, but it pisses me off when you offer someone something that, as you said, Kate, you've trained for, or you've put your heart and soul into. And training, I think, doesn't necessarily have to mean going to college or doing a course. It could be reading books, feeling into things, traveling, having conversations, living from your heart. That to me is training for the kind of heart work that people are doing. And people go, oh, you want an hour for that? And you think, yeah, I do. And they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to pay that. And then they walk out and they pay £150 for a fucking haircut. Yeah, or they go to the shopping mall and they just buy 10 bags of shit from Primark or whatever. Sorry, I'm being super judgmental now. Need to dial it down. Nothing wrong with any of that, but in relative terms, it's like, oh, I don't want that, but I'm prepared to do this over here for however many more times the amount. It doesn't at all make me angry anymore. It makes me think, oh, thank you, because I don't want to work with you. We're not going to work well together. So bless and release and all that lovely stuff. But for me, there's something about sitting in your pelvic bowl and fucking knowing you're worth it, because you are. I thank you. The rant is over.
Sarah, that was amazing. There's something that you said that really resonated massively with me, because when you're all talking about things like Rachel and Sue, the baby's with his dad. I haven't just abandoned him, if you can hear him screaming. You know, you probably have an artistic product to give, and you know, like Amy and Sarah, you and Kate, like you work, all of you have your things. You've trained for things to be able to offer them, but a lot of what I do, I haven't really trained for. And it was really interesting what you were saying, Sarah, about really valuing that actually, even though there isn't hours of like certified training, it's like actually life and experience and reading and learning and all that kind of stuff. And I've spent years of my life doing those things. And actually, yeah, I had never really, I don't think I'd ever counted them as training. I'd never thought about them as, I knew they were really valuable for what I was doing, but actually, yeah, that was a big switch then that sort of went off in me, because it was bloody hard work, a lot of it, you know. And God, don't get me wrong, it was wonderful and great and all these kind of things as well, but it was, I learned so much. And yeah, it's a really interesting line to walk for me, because I don't have, I'm a qualified teacher, which is lovely, and I do fall back on that and that whole worth thing. Yes, I'm a teacher, it's okay, you can trust me with things. But at the same time, it's like, like, you know, like the mums group, that I've never been to a mums group in my life, but offering a mums group, you know. And it's like, yeah, there's just so much of that, valuing myself and what I do and what I know and my intuition and the learning and all that kind of stuff, as actually I've put a lot of time and energy into it. But again, I think it comes from me valuing it first, doesn't it? You know. And it's also really, I love the bit that you were talking about, that kind of like honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Some of these sayings do my head in, because they are just so ingrained in us, aren't they? And yeah, you know, I come from a very sort of like working class family, and yeah, there's definitely part of me that doesn't feel like I'm working hard enough. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to, and I actually can't do a 9-to-5 job. I really can't do it. And when I do it, I just crumble. And this is the weird thing, when I try and do that and work hard and do things I should do, I can actually give less to the world than if I am doing what I want and what I love, you know. So paradox in itself, not really, is it? But yeah, but that is again another huge thing in my own psyche that I need to work through, of like actually valuing what I do and knowing that it doesn't have to look like 9 to 5. And one of the, I don't know if you've anyone's had a hand reading with Johnny Fincham, but that was one of the key bits of information that he told me that I really like grabbed hold of. When he was looking at my hand, he was just like, you can't do a normal job. And he just then looked at me and went, don't try. And it was huge. Like, it was that you know, we do like permission slips and stuff. It was that validation of, you can't do it. You've spent so long. And he said, you know, you've spent a long time trying. It's a waste of time, basically. Don't bother. And I was like, yes, someone has allowed me to like actually look somewhere else for things. And it's really interesting. Since then, I do feel I've been so much more productive. I've been able to offer the world so much more and myself so much more since I've been able to free myself from that. So it's weird, isn't it? Anyway, that again ran over. Thanks ever so much, guys.
Yeah, I really resonated with that, what you were saying about the... Oh, yeah, do you want to go, Kate?
No, you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say about the idea of like all of life being training. I just think I've never really thought of that before, but it's so true, and it feels really relevant because I've never studied photography formally at all. I've just learnt it very intuitively, and so I can feel really. I think I do have some imposter syndrome about, you know, I'm not techie. I couldn't teach someone how to use a camera, but then I don't want to, so I think that's probably okay. But even so, like the recent course I'm running, I just, you know, in the month beforehand I was thinking, who am I to be running this? I don't know anything. I've never studied photography. I don't know anything about, you know. And then as soon as I started diving into it, I just, you know, at some point I decided, right, I'm going to commit to this thing. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, I immerse myself in photography all the time and art all the time. Of course I know some stuff, and even if it's just my opinions, and I have the ability to research and learn. And yeah, so that's been a really good kind of reminder for me. And actually I really enjoy that element of yeah, it's different to like creating stuff, but does still feel very creative in a way, the kind of research and learning and drawing together threads, and I don't necessarily need a degree in photography to do that. So yeah, really useful. Thanks. Sorry, Kate, you were going to say something.
No need to apologize. I think I'm on a delay, so it's a bit tricky. Yeah, just something you've said a couple of times, Robin, about you've never been to a mother's group, and yeah, that I felt excited about that because you're offering one without having been to one, so you've got no like preconceptions, is that the right word? Or like you're not going to regurgitate, you know, what's already been done. You're going to do it really authentically from what you feel is needed, and I think whenever you do that, it's beautiful. So yeah, I'm really excited for the mums that want to come. So.
Oh, me too.
Thank you, darling.
I would have loved something like that when Althea was little. She's probably a bit old now at 11. I just know that what you offer is just going to be, it's just going to be really beautiful for, you know, the mums and their children, and you'll just bring so much heart to it.
Yeah.
And I have been to some, you know, some really awful mother and child groups, so I've just gone, oh, get me out of here, but I feel like I should, you know, because you can meet other mothers, but I know that I wouldn't have felt like that if I'd come to your group. I think it's brilliant that you're doing that.
Oh, thank you guys. That's it means it a lot, totally. And also I do feel very grateful, I suppose, being able to pair with somebody that has also been to a lot of mums groups. So it's that kind of being able to sort of it's really interesting talking to Mels, and she's like, we're not doing this. I'm like, that's good. No, we're not doing that. So it's lovely. But I'm really excited about it, and thank you very much for your beautiful words, because it's very uplifting. So thank you.
Yeah, wow, so much juiciness here. I just want to check in with it. Is everyone doing okay? Do we need a bio break? You've got your tea. Sarah's
No, I'd like some tea. I'd like something. A bio break.
In a week.
Bio
Nice.
break.
Tea in a week.
Yeah, awesome.
Back at midday.
Couple of minutes to just grab, refill your tea, have a wee, and then we'll be back. Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Isn't it like this? I think I'll leave you to explain that.
What's alive?
I'd like to know what everyone does to like feel like they're boosting their worth, maybe. If anyone's got any like techniques they use when they're starting to feel a little bit low in that area, whether anyone's got. I'm curious about that.
Great, thank you.
I have something I could share, Kate. I think everything I say, I'll speak from a personal perspective, okay? So I think the biggest game changer for me in this area was mindful self-compassion and like really practicing it. So I think my own experiences when I have like an inner critic or you know, any kind of sort of what I want to call shenanigans, and that's not me trivializing them, but you know, any sort of internal chatter stuff that particularly around the not being worth it or worthy or whatever, that feels to me like an inner part that has internalized the rules and is actually trying to keep me safe, but just doesn't have a very good strategy anymore because I'm an adult. And so I go within and I try and find that part and I sit with that part and I soothe that part. There's actually loads more I could say about that, but I don't want to take up all the time. And also, if and it may not be that it's inner critic stuff that you're speaking of, but I keep getting close to this and then doing something else. I am going to do a course on befriending our inner critic in the new year, because I think for me, like coming home to ourselves is the most important journey, really, and resolving those tensions and reassuring. Because I think for myself, I think what I was doing without knowing it really was betraying and abandoning myself by looking for approval predominantly outside of myself. And that's actually a game I can't win because I have no control or agency over what others think. And usually what they think has absolutely nothing to do with me, in the same way that what people think about you has nothing to do with you. It's 100% to do with them. Apart from when they really like you, that counts. But you know what I mean? Well, I'm going to use the word precarious. That isn't the word. There's another word out there. Hopefully it'll come to me. Yeah, I think there's something really powerful about this notion of not betraying ourselves, not abandoning ourselves, and getting in touch with that wise part that knows we're okay and knows we do have value and knows that we are worthy just by dint of being born. Before we do anything, we don't have to do anything. Our value is, for me, is intrinsically linked in our being, not in our doing. And I fully accept, a bit like Sue's workshop example earlier, I don't think sometimes it helps. I don't think it shifts things to hear people speaking of this as much as it does to practice it, does it? And to practice it iteratively, so that almost like a mother with a child, we just create this incredibly safe sense of, I am not going to betray or abandon myself. And there may be pieces of work to do before we can get to that, but I don't know, I'm going to stop in case I'm kind of ploughing a furrow that's not super helpful or on point. And it might be.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, me, I think that it really kind of sounds, yeah, and I think like coming back to the body is a massive part of that, isn't it? Like being physically in your body, and that's really what I'm really thinking into more and more and more, that actually, you know, up here, when our awareness is up here, or even up here, we're like, scrambling. I feel like I scramble a lot for my work. It's like, oh my God, shit, you know, I need to do this, and blah, blah, blah. But actually, when it's like, oh God, really thinking into my body, like whatever form that takes for you. You know, sometimes it's literally just having a wild shake out and then becoming still and just being like, whew. And having that breath to remember. Yeah, I feel like the body knows, and that knowing with a capital K comes with that sense and that feel of worthiness, of enoughness, of everything is okayness. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been trying to do more and more, is just actually, or yeah, maybe perhaps not trying, but like just coming back to how it feels to take a breath and let my belly take up space, and how it feels to really, like, you know, massage my feet and how incredible it is to feel in this body. That really helps me with my worthiness, my sense of worthiness.
I'm really loving how we all, I don't know, embody worthiness in our own individual ways, if that makes sense. Like Amy, I love how I feel like I can always rely on you to bring me back to my body, because I forget all about it all the bloody time. And it's always so lovely. Like just at the beginning of this session, I'm like, right, everyone's here, okay, let's have a chat, let's go. And then I always value so much when you're like, right, okay, and let's breathe. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's really great. And it's so fascinating how quickly I forget these things. And so I know that it is like, you know, so much about me and my own way of doing things. But again, I do really get a lot of value out of other people's ways, because I think we each have our individual go-tos, but they all sort of resonate in lots of different ways. I think obviously the very profound thing that's very present for me at the moment is that whole so I'm walking in a lot of mud right now, so if I fall over, this is going to be hilarious. It's that whole thing of like our intrinsic worth, because like when you have a baby, they don't do anything of any particular value, bless them, but they're just you know, so full of value. Like they're absolutely amazing. And I think, yeah, it really does, it's really highlighted to me and brought it back to how it isn't about what we do, it really is about who we are. And so he's gonna fall asleep soon, these are some noises that he does, but it's really fascinating. Like my example's gone now, but what was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? Yeah, well, basically it's just about how ultimately babies are babies and they don't do anything, but we all have so much value even when we're not doing anything. And oh, you know, that was it, smiles. Like I never, it's that whole thing, until you do something, isn't it? You know, people say about having children and stuff, like it's really the most difficult thing they've ever done, but it means more to, you know, it's the most exciting, the most wonderful. And I was always a bit like, I don't understand. And so much of that for me is actually tied up in his smiles. Like it can be like the shittest night's sleep that I've ever had, and then you sort of roll over in the morning and he smiles at you and you're like, all right then. and I think, you know, we all have that. We all have a smile that we can give, and we all have, like, yeah, we all have worth without getting out of bed in the morning, basically. And even when we can't smile, you know, this Ruba has a lot to say about this. Yeah, we just have, yeah, it is that intrinsic worth and trying to remember it and trying to know it. So it's not easy at all. But yeah, thanks all. Love you loads.
I think something I'm trying to work with at the moment is that also always seeking validation or value from external sources. So I've really noticed how when I'm really in the flow of creating some artwork, I often just want to share it on Instagram straight away. So I'm just trying to sit with that a bit at the moment and kind of think, oh, do I need to share this right now? Because then what happens is I share it and then I'm sat there going, has anyone seen it? Has anyone liked it? Oh, someone's commented. Ooh. And you get these little hits of like, ooh, validation. And it is lovely to share work, and it's lovely when people respond. But I don't want it to always be about that. So yeah, I think I'm going to try and just create stuff and then just think, like, do I like this? Is this saying something to me? Do I need to share this with the world right now? Just maybe keep something a little bit back just for me to think about and for me to value. And I really want to build in some social media breaks as well for that same reason. Because yeah, I can either fall into like sharing my stuff straight away and looking for the validation, or if I'm not in a very creative space, I'll just scroll through what other people are doing and, oh, look what they've made. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, I'm not, you know, oh, I'm not in that space at the moment. And, you know, it can be a source of inspiration, or it can be a source of comparisonitis. So I think just sort of rumbling with that a bit at the moment. And I think maybe having some breaks from the external input and influence could be really helpful for me, to kind of get back in touch with that, like, what do I value, what's in there. But I don't want to completely cut myself off from the world either. So it's finding a balance, I think, for me. I'm not quite there yet, but work in progress.
So I know I've just shared, I just wanted to say, Rach, just to reframe that, and I know you just were really good at saying I, and you know, for your process at the moment, but for me, whenever I've done, sorry, sickly, it's really hard to put things out there. So I think I'd like to celebrate you for having, when you do something, putting it out there to show everybody. Because thanks. I think that is actually, I don't know, it's one of the most difficult things. So actually maybe it isn't all bad, actually. And something that I've been wanting to say to you from the beginning, I forgot about. Sorry. What is the website about? Like buy you a cup of coffee or something?
Oh yeah,
you know
yeah, coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Is it just called?
I think it's KOFI. Yeah.
Is it?
I think
because I just wondered if that might be something that you could do, and it's just like, yeah, I can share my photos with you, but will you just put a little bit of money in here?
Yeah, I've got a friend who has one of those. It's like a crowdfunding thing, but it's like a really small amount. You can pay, like, I think the standard amount is like £3, so it's basically like buying someone a coffee. And she I had a Zoom call with her recently where she was talking to me about Arts Council funding and applications and stuff, and I was just really grateful. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to buy her a coffee. So it's just a really nice thing to do. I can't physically buy her a coffee, obviously, at the moment, and she lives quite far away. But yeah, that's a really good call. And yeah, thanks for saying that, Robin. I sort of, yeah, I forget that. I think I've got hooked on the kind of, I guess I know there's a certain number of people who follow me on Instagram who seem to like what I put out there. So I'm like, oh, trusting that they're gonna like it and validate me. But so maybe it's not so much about not sharing stuff. Maybe it's more about sharing the work in progress and sharing the stuff that maybe I feel hasn't worked so well, and just opening up to discussion rather than it always being like, I have to only share my best things, my best face and my best work. Yeah, I'll ponder on that. Thank you.
Or are you just generally being hard on yourself and you don't need to be? Just putting it out there.
Yeah, maybe. Quite likely that I'm just being hard on myself.
I found this week, and I think it maybe is perhaps another manifestation of Sarah, you described, was it mindful self-compassion or compassionate mindfulness? What, I can't remember the words that you described.
I would say mindful self-compassion. Yeah.
Mindful self-compassion. I think I consciously ended up sort of framing it for myself this week as a kind of like almost like I was sort of being a compassionate parent to myself. I think maybe having had 2 weeks of spending so much time with Althea, and then when she had her evenings over at her dad's, I was just kind of collapsing or having to work. And so I hadn't had this for a couple of weeks. And then when she went back to school, and I really felt, my energy was quite low, and I was could really feel the sort of edges of depression sort of creeping in. And I just thought, God, if I was okay, so if I was the child, my parent would be saying, and I was like physically ill, my parent would be saying to me now, go and lie down on the sofa, and I'll put, get a blanket for you, get some pillows around you. And I just thought what my soul was needing and what was going on with my mental well-being, I felt like I needed to bring that compassionate parent part to myself. And it was almost like, I suppose, my natural instinct to kind of look for that care externally, but I sort of did it within myself. So it was like I was, there was me as the child and me as the parent, as sort of, I suppose, just really trying to make an effort to listen to myself and go, okay, what do you need right now? So, okay, what I really need to do is I really need to go and be with the tree. and actually I listened, and it was really inspired by you, Britt, because I hadn't heard I'm only really recently getting into Brené Brown's podcast at the moment, but Kate, what you shared from her about the strong back, soft front, wild heart, which I've just been sitting with so much this week. And I listened to that podcast as I was going for this walk. And then I got to the end of it, and I had arrived in a small woodland near where we live, just off Deering Road here in Norwich. And there was this really beautiful oak tree. And I just leaned my back against this oak, and I just felt the oak was really supporting me to have that strong back. And like the oak was saying, understood that sometimes it's like my strong back is something that I feel like I'm really having to work on at the moment. And the oak was going, it's okay, because you're not on your own doing this, and I can lend you this support. So yeah, I've just been really just going with that this week and going, okay, baby, what do you need? Okay, you need this. Okay, let's do this then. And celebrating little things. My sort of, what was feeling like my impossible task was sorting out the clutter in my home. I think the penny's starting to drop. I don't have to do it all at once. So every little bit that I'm doing, I'm celebrating again in the way that I would if Althea had like tidied her room, and I'd be like, oh, that's brilliant. So I tidied a shelf the other day, got loads of crappy, stale bits of food. And I just really celebrated the fact that I did that. And every time I'm walking past, I'm looking in the cup and going, I fucking did that, and just really celebrating the little things that I managed to do, praising myself for them. I think that's what's been going on with me. And that's been a real shift for me this week, I think, because I'm such a whip cracker on myself. Like, oh, fuck's sake, you're never doing enough. But I've just really tried to step back from that this week. So yeah, being my own compassionate parent is what's working for me right now.
Do you mind if I just want to respond to something in that, or maybe add to it, or if you've put some threads down, put some more threads down, Sue, because I love what you're saying. And I think one of the most sacred threads in the tapestry of life is the one about spiritual reparenting. So like parenting ourselves, like you're talking about. And it strikes me as really interesting that earlier we were talking about oh yeah, I didn't go for a course for this, and no, I don't know what I can charge. It's like, this is the fucking school of life, the spiritual reparenting. It really is. And we've all done some of that work. And I don't want to make anyone bad or wrong ever, but like a shit ton of people haven't got anywhere near that work and are just taking it all out into the world, you know, spilling out, like, as we do, as I do, as humans do. And there's just something really profound and powerful and empowering, I think, about, like, just like that oak tree, Sue. And absolutely, I think we should, all of us should, don't like to use the word, you know, lean back from time to time, literally lean back and be held by something bigger than ourselves. There's no question in my mind. And we become the oak tree for that small part of us that needs to lean back, because it, you know, we all have these fractured parts. And the loyal soldiers, you know, who are still fighting the war, and the war was finished years ago. Yeah, and wow, what a revolutionary act to offer unconditional love, you know, to all parts of ourselves. And what I'm learning and taking away from you, Sue, in particular from that, because I noticed myself doing it the last couple of weeks, and the novelty of it has shocked me. Like, I've done things, and I've done certain things I've done quite well, you know, one of which was taking myself to the dentist, even though I don't like the dentist, but my tooth was like screaming at me. And I just kind of caught myself in the mirror, and I was like, nice one, kid. Because, and more than that, I will give myself loving encouragement as well, because I that's not my default mode. And it really makes an embodied difference to me to feel myself say that. And to take care of myself in that really holistic way. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue, for the for that. Yeah, I think it's just so awesome, makes so much sense. And this week I've been thinking a lot about how my mind is conditioned to look for all the things I haven't done around the house. And we sort of saying about, you know, celebrating things that you have done. And yeah, this week I've been trying to, when I walk into a room, notice the things I have done. Oh, you have tidied those toys away, and you did hoover yesterday, and you did pick up that coffee cup that was there yesterday, even though those 4 are still there this morning. You know, like, it's really it's really shifted my perspective, and was really fascinating as to how I was just conditioned to the negative, actually. So I think I might take that a bit step further, actually, and just take it into the celebration mode, because yeah, it's really powerful, isn't it? And yeah, and why is it little things like say clearing shelves, like, and this is another thing that I've been trying to do, is just a little bit when I can, because obviously it's been really weird having a baby, because I used to have all the time in the world to do stuff, and now I've got like small pockets, and so I'm like, I need to do that, and that. It's like, that's not going to happen, is it? So what can I do? But what's been the most difficult is because it'll be like, I can make myself a cup of tea, I can put the washing on, I can, you know, whatever. And I always put make myself something at the bottom of the list. And so this week I've been trying to put that thing at the top of the list. So I do that first, and then anything else happens. And again, tiny little differences, but make so much difference. So yeah, and also I'm loving the whole, I'm quite on board with the whole parenting ourselves. I know I used to like the whole inner child stuff, but hearing you say that, Sue, is really interesting, because obviously I spend my whole day encouraging a small child, just like then it can fall asleep. So I mean, like, encouraging him to fall asleep. And, oh my God, the tiny things that we encourage children to do. And like I say, we're so harsh on ourselves for these amazing things that we're actually doing. So yeah, I'm gonna really encourage myself and celebrate myself. So thank you for that, Sue. That was beautiful.
Does that answer your question, Kate?
That was amazing. Thank you so much. And I think when we were talking about, was it, oh, Robin was talking about smiles, like it reminded me of my friend when I was living in Kent. He kept saying something to me, and I think he was trying to kind of encourage it to be a mantra for me, because that was when I was really in a dark place. And it's smiling face, relaxed mind. So I think he was trying to encourage me to see those little things and smile about the little things. And you just all reminded me of that, so thank you all for that. Yeah, well, loads of amazing stuff. I've written loads there, so thank you. I'll definitely be practicing some bits and bobs myself as well to try and encourage more self-worth. Thank you.
Yay! Yay to everyone! Oh, yeah, it's just such a mass. I've written loads of things down as well, and I think what I'll do is I'll type it up and send it to you all, so you've all got it. And yeah, thank you all so much for sharing your wisdom. And whew, yeah, I've got no words. I'm just taking it all in. Yeah. Yeah, I love how, I mean, I've written so much down, and there's lots that I'm going to be taking away. But I think it's I can't remember who said it now, but we are enough. We are enough. That's it. And there's nothing, there's no if and when or but. It's just we are enough. That's it. Whether we choose to lay in bed and watch Netflix all day, or we choose to clean one shelf, or we choose to, whatever it is, we are always enough. Like more than enough, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to add to that, Amy, if it's all right, that whatever our current struggle is okay. Because all of our struggles are completely different, and it's so easy to judge our own as not enough as well, not bad enough and that kind of stuff. But actually, whatever it is it's ours, and it's what we're dealing with. And so yeah, anyway, love you.
I just also want to add, maybe folk are familiar with this Buddhist idea of the second arrow. Like when we're wounded, there's quite a habit for many of us. I've been one of them, I'm sure I will be again, where we have a wound, like whatever it is, a low mood or something we haven't done or something we've said or not said or whatever, or maybe even a physical wound like toothache. And then we add the second arrow of what Jill Bolte Taylor calls the itty bitty shitty committee. So, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't be feeling like that. Why didn't you go to the dentist? Whatever it is, the itty bitty shitty committee. And actually on another day, I have a great deal of tenderness for the itty bitty shitty committee, because they don't know any better, and that's their strategy for keeping us safe. So it's not about making that part of ourselves wrong. It's just kind of bringing it back home and nurturing it so that it dials that kind of criticism down. But for the point of sharing here, or the piece to share that I want to share here, is that second arrow. We're already wounded, let's tend to that and not kind of add another incoming, arrow. I found that concept, the second arrow, I found that really helpful over the years, because it helps me separate out what I'm really struggling with, and then the layers part of me is adding to that, because I feel, I've gone into threat protection mode from when I was a child or what. Yeah,
thank you, Sarah. That's really powerful. Very strong and present. So I'm going to invite anyone who, does anyone have any sort of, not last words, that's not what I mean. You got any last words? more like, yeah, just before we close the circle, anything that you want to share or that you're going to take away from what you're going to take away. Yeah, maybe just a popcorn brief kind of.
I think I have reconnected with the value of filling my own cup. Yes.
Thank you, Rachel.
I think it's a bit too much for a few words, to be honest. It's been a very profound couple of hours. Really appreciated it. And yeah, thank you everybody for your words. And Sarah, I found you very full of wisdom today. Very much. Thank you so much. Not that I don't normally, obviously, but especially. So yeah, that second arrow, I like it's a concept I've come across many times, obviously, but sometimes it just takes, like that one's got a visual to it, and I feel like it'll stick with it. It'll actually come to my mind, because so often when these things are happening, everything's all fuzzy and I can't see anything. And so having things that have a visual that will come back and be like, yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for that one, as well as all of the other things that have been shared over the last couple of hours. So a lot to think about and a lot to dwell on, but I don't mean that, but and yeah, Amy, if you're up for just bullet pointing, that would be absolutely amazing. I'd love to put some of these things up somewhere so I've actually got something to go back to in those difficult times, because like I say, in the difficult times I can't think of shit, basically. So yeah, to have something written that a resource, that's what the word I'm looking for, that'd be amazing. So yeah, thank you, love you all.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. This has been this has been really rich this morning, and I feel like it's just really helped to sort of bed in, fortify, reinforce the sort of process that I feel like I've been sort of dabbling my feet in the water with this week, and I feel like to kind of sort of like a consolidating and sort of sharing this and this sort of shared wisdom and some really beautiful images and practice and wisdom to bring into that as well. So yeah, just hugely grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like I just want to dig deeper now because you've all got so much wisdom and stuff. I'm like, oh god, that's 2.5 hours. So thank you all for sharing. And I think in connecting with you all, I've reconnected with myself. So thank you all for just for being you. Love you all.
Thank you all so much. And I invite you to, let things digest and percolate, and also think about or feel into, what are the nuggets that you want to dive deeper into. Because obviously, as you all know, this is a really co-created space, and like Sue was really feeling this week and she put it forward. So if there's something that's come up and popped for you, write it down, feel into it and say, actually, I'd really like to explore this, or I really like to, have a conversation about this. Because obviously we've got a whole new year happening, starting very soon. So have a think about what you need firstly, and what you want to explore, and if there's certain resources that you want to dive into together, please do say, and we can do it together as a community, as a tribe, change makers. Sarah, you have your hand up. Yes.
Can I go to the toilet? No. Sorry, I hadn't said. I wanted to make sure I had time to say thank you, but I'm mindful of interrupting your flow now, Amy, so I apologise for that.
No, go for it.
But yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for the space and for inviting me, and it's really lovely to see your lovely faces and to be with you and share things with you and hear from you. I guess in terms of takeaways, there's lots of richness here. It feels like a really sort of loamy soil, but there's a little shoot that's already coming up, which is about really amplifying my celebration of things that I might ordinarily step over. So thank you. And I did bring a little poem along in case we wanted to end on a poem, and I'm open to people needing to go off and not listen to poems and go and wee and do other things.
I would really love to hear it if everyone's okay with that. Yeah, go for it. Take it away, Sarah.
Okay, I was going to invite everyone to close their eyes. That might not include you, Robin, because you really might go over like a sack of spuds, and I don't want to be part of that for many reasons. But yeah, if it's comfortable and it's safe to do so, maybe you'd like to close your eyes. And I would love to just put in the space that the notion, I invite us to consider the notion that this poem asked to be here today and wanted to be on the call with us. This is Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Mary Oliver.
Thank you all so much for your hearts, your souls, your wisdom, and for showing up exactly how you are today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, give yourself some time and space to feel into and digest and more reconnect over in the WhatsApp group hopefully soon, and start making some dreaming into some plans for 2021 of how we want to move forward and how we want this to be. So anything goes.
Good.
Give yourself permission to really dream into that. Whoo, yeah, lovely to see you all, and I'll be in touch on the WhatsApp group to put another date in the diary for January. Yeah, and as always, feel free to contact me if you want to brainstorm things or a virtual cup of tea or go for a walk. Yeah, that's always welcome.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for holding the space, lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
And hopefully we'll be able to have an in-person gathering in 2021.
Oh, that would be good.
Good. Okay, my lovelies, enjoy the rest of your days.
Bye. Bye to the Riverman as well, the 7th person on the call.